Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about something I find amusing, and it's that it seems like powerlifting is the only sport really that argues about if the conjugate method is good or effective or not. And it's really funny because when people think of the conjugate method or the West Side method, they think of powerlifting, right? Because that is where it originated. And whether you fully understand the system or not isn't relevant to that topic and understanding who's used it and why. And what I mean is, it's ironic that we have a system that came out of powerlifting, developed by powerlifters for powerlifters. It turned out to be a really good athletic system used in a ton of different sports at the elite level. And yet, powerlifters are the ones who want to argue about if it's any good or not. And before we jump into some of the other sports and people out there that I know of who use it, I want people to think about for a moment the fact that you have a system in powerlifting that has produced dozens and dozens of world record holders successfully, that always evolves and changes and seeks to always be the best system, right? It's always adapting and modifying and changing with the times, because that's what they do over at Westside with their training system, where they develop it. They're always trying to innovate, and they're always trying to stay current. And they're always trying to find ways to implement new methods into the actual programming while keeping the flow of the programming that they know works. And that's the beauty of it. But it's ironic that they produced all these world record holders, and then in the same sport, people want to argue there that it doesn't work. Or they make the even more absurd argument, well, it only works for equipped lifters. Well, until you take the equipment off. And I want people to stop and think for a moment. Do you really think that a guy who in a bench press shirt benches 1,000 pounds in a bench shirt, or squats 1,200 pounds in a squat suit, that when they take that suit off, they're not still really, really, really strong? You do understand that you're still talking about people who bench over 500 pounds in a t-shirt, or who can throw on a pair of shorts and a t-shirt and a belt and squat or deadlift 800 pounds. Okay, it's not like the people who are even using the system for the equipped lifting are not still really strong. Because I personally believe that being able to bench over 500 pounds raw and being able to squat over 800 pounds raw is really strong. I would classify it that way. And if you don't, I don't know what to tell you. And I think what people also need to remember is that a lot of these raw world record holding bench pressers will be like, well, there's benchers stronger than that. Number one, they're generally over 400 pounds. Number two, they're bench specialists, meaning they're not always full power lifters. Some of those guys don't even squat or deadlift. So keep that in perspective. So we're talking about guys who do full meets. We're strong top to bottom here. So we can argue about that all that we want. Well, okay, it's not producing champions in this branch of powerlifting. Well, mainly because they're not using it. They're not interested in using it. They're not really interested in trying it or implementing it for their own reasons. Doesn't mean it wouldn't work if they did. But then you look at who all else uses it. It's been used for all these other sports. My bro Alex Viada uses it with hybrid athletes. Okay, he uses it with hybrid athletes, people who compete in multiple sports, who combine strength and endurance sports at the same time, stuff like that. That's what he specializes in. He's got a very successful coaching business in it. He is himself a successful hybrid athlete. Now, of course, people hear that and say, but he's not a world champion in anything. Well, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, I'm going to say that when you squat over 500 pounds and you deadlift over 600 pounds and can do triathlons and can complete a super marathon, you're still a pretty good hybrid athlete. Do you have to be the best in the world to say, hey, that guy's a pretty serious elite athlete? No. No. Just kind of the point. Not everyone has the genetics to be number one, but pretty successful. And they use Conjugate method for that. He uses Conjugate method. You've got Winning over here coaching all these other teams, even at Westside. Look at all these different sports that they train people for. Sprinters, boxers, MMA fighters. All these other people using the method. You got Winning over here coaching a Special Forces team. Because there's a certain point where even the military is looking and saying, yeah, this might be a viable method and some coaching we need for some of our guys. Because aren't those guys athletes, right? Special Forces teams are athletes in every sense of the word. Yes, they're warriors. Yes, they're fighters, but they're athletes. And I would classify most of them as probably being elite athletes or close to be really good at what they do. To be really good at what they do, you probably need the people on there to be as fit as maybe a D1 level college athlete. Probably be a real good idea. The system works for them. And you got guys like DeFranco, who ran versions of Conjugate all through his early years coaching, making a name for himself, getting guys into the NFL. He was preparing guys for the combine. Now, obviously, he incorporated a wide variety of other methods through there. Yes, there was a lot of specific stuff, obviously, to the combine. But I mean, many, many, many years ago, even before I was on YouTube, look at the documentary he had called Strong. Way back in the day. That's been like over a decade ago. And you saw it back then. So we see this training system being utilized pretty mainstream. You can see it. It's visible. Being utilized in a wide variety of strength and conditioning circles very successfully for elite athletes in a pretty large number of sports. Hybrid athletes, NFL players, MMA guys, a lot of college athletes. So at a certain point, you have to look at the system and realize this system works very, very well. The proof is in the pudding. And it doesn't matter that there are guys who are elite athletes in different sports who don't use it. That's not relevant to say it's not a phenomenal adaptable system and that it can't be used for everyone. Because the fact of the matter is, you still have the best in multiple sports who use the same basic training system. And people need to understand it's a system. It's not just a workout. It's an adaptable system. It's what I coach. In fact, I get any of my lifters onto it as quick as I can. Some people, I can't put them on it as quick as others, because there's a lot of individual things going on with individual people. Certain injuries, certain limitations, things that we have to work around. Maybe they can't box squat. Can't figure out how to get them box squatting good early on. So sometimes it takes time, but even I coach all my lifters on it. My guys make gains all the time. But this is an adaptable system. And it works into any strength and conditioning program, and that's the point. It's not just powerlifting. And yes, it does produce elite powerlifters. And again, I hate that absurdity of we have a system like this, because I'm not all about just powerlifting. I'm about strength, conditioning, athleticism, with a heavy bias towards strength, obviously. But it's not just powerlifting. Because I don't believe in training just for powerlifting. Right? I think that a powerlifter should be an athlete. My opinion. Of course, people will say, well, there are power lifters who aren't really good athletes. And it hasn't stopped them from breaking records. Well, that's true. That's true. But I think they would be healthier and fitter and have more longevity if they were more athletic. Which is where the conjugate comes in. It's the beauty of the system. It makes you all around strong, all around good, all around athletic, while being as strong as possible at a large number of different angles. Instead of just, I'm good at the squat, bench, and deadlift. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with being great at the squat, bench, and deadlift. I love powerlifting. But the point is that this is an adaptable system, and it works for a wide variety of athletes very, very successfully. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.